From its beginning nearly 50 years ago, the journalism fellowships at Stanford have celebrated and nourished journalism that uncovers wrongdoing and injustice. Dozens of Stanford journalism fellows have come here to hone their craft and have gone on to powerful success afterwards. Indeed, the director emeritus of the Knight Fellowships, Jim Risser, won his first Pulitzer Prize for uncovering a grain inspector scandal. I could cite many others. I just want to mention that one in particular. Investigating reporting is expensive, and it rarely produces a feel-good story, and it often requires taking on established, well-funded, powerful figures. Each of those factors has reduced the capacity for this essential form of journalism in recent years, and this is one of the really sobering effects of the disruption of journalism that we all know has occurred. But contrary to some reports, it is not dead, and tonight we're going to tell you about a story reported and written, yes, fought for, by a journalist who has labored under some of the most difficult circumstances in U.S. journalism. Her name is Karen DeSaw. She is an investigative reporter for the San Jose Mercury News, and she was a Knight Fellow in 2005-2006. That was the year. So that was the year that journalism's disruption starkly affected Knight Fellows in a way that could not be ignored. 5 of the 7 U.S. daily newspaper journalists that year were offered buyouts. 2 had their newspapers sold out from under them. Both happened to Karen. She started her fellowship working for Dean Tony Ritter and ended working for Dean Singleton. I can't think of a single newspaper that has suffered more from the changes in journalism than the San Jose Mercury News. In early 2001, it had a news and editorial staff of more than 400. Now, with the consolidation of copy desk off-site, not to mention buyouts, layoffs, furloughs, and attrition, that staff number is fewer than 100. Its building is for sale. These are powerful constraints, and no one I know would say that the Mercury News of 2013 is on a par with the Mercury News of 10 years ago. But good people at this paper continue to do good work, and I want a really special mention to Pete Carey, Barbara Marshman, David Early, Deb Swift, who are here and doing that good work. And one of the outstanding pieces of work by the Mercury News in 2012 was done by Karen and is summarized in this video.
For more than a decade, Danny Reed has been trying to regain control of his life. First physically, now financially. He learned to walk and talk again after a car plowed into him, leaving him brain damaged and partially paralyzed. But nobody warned him about his next battle, fighting to keep the money that's been set aside for his lifelong care. Little did he know his fight would be with the person entrusted to watch out for him.
I've not been sleeping. I wake up in the dark hours of the morning. I'm just trying to fight this person off. I'm trying to keep this person from preying upon me.
All the money Danny Reed had in his trust, more than $500,000, came under the control of a court-appointed trustee. Now he fears there will be nothing left. Private professionals, known as fiduciaries, are appointed by judges to handle the care and finances of elderly and disabled people. In many cases, they play a vital role, orchestrating everything from complex money management to bedside care. But in Silicon Valley, their services can come at a steep cost. While Reed's case stands out among the roughly 1,500 elderly and incapacitated adults overseen by the Santa Clara County Superior Court, a Mercury News investigation revealed that a small group of the county's court-appointed fiduciaries are charging exorbitant fees, sometimes double the hourly rates that are allowed in most other Bay Area counties. And the Santa Clara County Court has few rules to deter them.
Well, the Danny Reed case represents the problem where you have an individual who is by definition powerless, vulnerable, in a complex legal system where their rights and their money and their assets are being taken away from them.
After his accident, Reed successfully sued for damages and thought the money would help him in his struggle to recover from traumatic brain injury. He still has virtually no use of his left arm and suffers from memory loss and chronic pain due to nerve damage.
I was in coma for 2.5 months, and when I came out of coma, I had some severe brain trauma, brain injuries, and as far as recovering from that, it's been a very, very long, painful, and difficult process. The settlement monies offered me the comfort that I would be taken care of in life.
At first, Reed's mother managed his money and affairs, but confusion over a mislabeled bank account led a Santa Clara County Superior Court judge to appoint Thomas Thorpe to temporarily oversee Reed's estate. Reed and his family insisted they didn't need the help. They fought Thorpe's appointment in court. Despite the objection, Thorpe worked as Reed's trustee for 4.5 months in 2010. His court-appointed mission was to protect Reed's assets, but his fees came as a shock. Thorpe's first bill for service, combined with charges for his 2 attorneys, came to more than $108,000. Some of those charges were to defend himself from Reed's efforts to remove him as trustee.
Every unnecessary court filing, I knew they were just running up the bill every time they would make an appearance in court, every time they would send me a letter, every time they would do anything, they would use that as an excuse to bill for thousands upon thousands of dollars more.
Thorpe's and his attorney's fees continued growing by the thousands of dollars, even after he resigned from the case on October 2010, and Reed's sister took over as his trustee. Reed soon learned another lesson. Challenging his trustee's fees would cost him even more. When Reed and his public defender fought the fees in court and claimed Thorpe had violated his duty, another 6-digit bill landed. Thorpe and his lawyers sought an additional $198,000 for defending their original charges. And later, they added another $63,000 in attorney's fees. Thorpe even billed Reed's trust $2,500 a day to sit through his own trial.
Danny is one of a number of people who have been taken advantage of by professional fiduciaries, some recklessly, maybe some intentionally. And Danny was just he was the poster child for this kind of a problem. His case really was so outrageous that it was emblematic of all the problems in the system.
Thorpe and his attorneys declined repeated requests for interviews, but in court filings they argued that they worked hard on Reed's case. Thorpe arranged for a massive cleanup of Reed's San Jose townhouse, fixed some errors with his bank accounts, and improved his insurance policy. Elder law attorney Sherry Sudweeks is not involved in the Danny Reed case, but she points out nobody gets paid until a judge approves the fees. Her firm has represented 20 Silicon Valley conservators and trustees, and she praises their performance.
Most of them are compassionate beyond belief. I think that the nature of the business and having to sacrifice so much in their personal lives to take on these problems of others, they have to be a part business person, part social worker, part counselor. I have not seen anything where I believe a fiduciary has been dishonest or that they have done things just to run up fees.
Most people at the heart of these probate cases have dementia and other disabilities. With their limited capacities, they are unaware of what's happening in the probate process. But Danny Reed, despite his severe disability, has been fully aware.
This is so many times worse than my accident and my recovery. This is a person who's preying upon me, who's relentless in the determined attempt to extract money from my trusts.
For Reed and his legal team, the battle has become about more than money.
There's a flaw in the system that is being exploited, and for Danny Reed to take these steps to sort of fix that flaw, or at least bring awareness to that flaw, I think has a much more lasting impact than the pure dollar amount.
I didn't want to be just like another one. I had to speak out. I had to say that if something's going to happen, that when people hear what's going on, that they would have to stop it. You know, that this has to end.
Over the last year, a judge threw out most of Thorpe's fees, but ruled he had not violated his professional duty. The judge, however, said California law gave him no choice but to award Thorpe's attorney $146,000 for defending Thorpe and his fees. How much has it all cost Danny Reed? The numbers tell that story.
As they say in the Ronco ads, but wait, there's more. Since the story was published, Santa Clara County Superior Court has curbed conservator fees. A bill that would curb these fees statewide is headed to Governor Jerry Brown's desk. An appeals court has erased the $108,771 conservator's bill, and the conservator agreed to a settlement that relinquished his claim for attorney's fees. Bottom line, Danny Reed got all his money back. That is impact. The Knight Fellowships has always celebrated journalists who do excellent work under adverse conditions. The last two reunions, we celebrated courageous reporters from Ukraine and Colombia. Tonight, we've asked a woman who works under the duress of dwindling resources and a weakened journalism infrastructure to talk about why and how she keeps the torch lit. Karen DeSaw.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by saying, Trayvon Martin, may you rest in peace. Heroic neutral. Some of you know what I'm talking about. We were at the first seminar. Before I begin, I'd like to thank my mother, Ann Davidson, who's here today. My mother raised a little girl who got the great honor of becoming a journalist. Thank you, Mom. I do have to admit, I feel a little bit silly being up here today. And that is because I'm among you folks who have risked your lives. You've been charged with sedition. You've been expelled by presidents and fled your country. You've been imprisoned. In my 2006 class alone, Carola has staked out pedophile Nazi cult leaders in the jungle of Chile. Carolyn, all the way from the UK, uncovered that DuPont Chemical had poisoned people with their pesticides, and children were being born with no eyes. Emily has dragged her small daughter to cover Middle Eastern war zones. Alan protected Chinese villagers from destructive dams. Martin reported live from Rwandan refugee camps via satellite. These are my people. This is my class. My other classmate, Ivan Penn, in the Tampa Bay Times just this May, did a story. I really hope you'll indulge me. Are you guys in a hurry? Thank you. I want to read the lead of this story because not only is it friggin' amazing journalism, it reads like poetry. Ivan, it's right here. In the long run, Ivan says, nuclear power is cheap. This, for many of Florida's top decision makers, is the truth. And Ivan, how did you get that capital T through the copy desk? The truth has a capital T in this story. This is a newspaper. That's not an AP style. Lawmakers have cast aside their worship of the free market, which long ago lost trust in building nuclear plants, and skewed state law to favor construction of new reactors. Lisa Edgar is a believer. As a member of the Public Service Commission, she is one of 5 votes that greenlight new nuclear plants, including Duke Energy's Levy County project. The law that favors nuclear plants, Edgar said last month, could save Florida consumers, now get this, quote, millions and millions and maybe even billions, unquote, of dollars. I love that part. State officials repeat the nuclear saves money gospel so often, the Tampa Bay Times set out to see if the premise is true. The analysis compared the cost of the Levy nuclear plant to a natural gas facility, using a set of assumptions that, if anything, favors nuclear. A new truth emerged. Natural gas would be cheaper. Cheaper by billions of dollars. Cheaper even over 60 years and under any likely scenario, Ivan reported. What building a new nuclear plant does really well, the analysis show, is fatten a utility's bottom line. Duke Energy would pocket as much as 10 times the profit from the Levy project as it would from a natural gas facility. And yet, the myth about the Levy plant being cheaper lives on. Until Ivan's story. In a newspaper, that thing you all roll fish in and line your kitty litter box with, that came out in a newspaper. Unlike some of my colleagues, I have more humble aspirations. And my family, who's here today, helps me with that. My husband, Besola, hi, honey, I love you. He always likes the pictures that go with my story, the things that I have nothing to do with. My daughter, Rasa, inspired by her middle school classmates, she designed a t-shirt for me. The front said, "Professional snitch." And the back, "Snitches get stitches." Little Julian had to watch the Danny Reed video being edited. It was an all-nighter, people. And whenever he sees it, he puts his head in his hands and he says, "Not the Danny Reed video." My daughter, Selena, when she heard the title of this talk, "Who Says Investigative Journalism is Dead?" told me, "Mom, you always say investigative journalism is dead." Thanks, Jim and Dawn, for this wonderful assignment. one of my tougher ones. You all have spent 4 days and 4 nights talking about how dead newspapers are, and I'm supposed to inspire you tonight, send you off into the world with a hopeful message. So please assume that I'm speaking from the grave. Hello! But I am actually, believe it or not, here to say that we still do this because it works. And Beth Daly and I from the Boston Globe were just talking about this. We are proud and counting ourselves the people who are still at daily newspapers and still doing investigative journalism. We're no longer to be pitied. In this story about the probate courts, it wasn't just Danny. I assure you, I wouldn't have gotten a year and a half if it was just Danny. There were other victims too. And in one case, one of these fiduciaries charged $1,062 to go to a dementia care home and visit her client for her birthday. And I can say this because my dad had Alzheimer's. I am sure she did not remember that birthday party in the morning. Another woman I wrote about was charged $25,000 for 12 days of service where her nails were clipped and her mail was sorted through, and then she signed a check from her account. She hadn't signed a check in 10 years, but she signed that $25,000 check. In all the cases we wrote about, every single one, they were revisited, they were adjusted, they were taken to task, and the cases were brought back to court, and the fees were revisited by a judge. And some of them I followed, and some of them are dragging on, but there was new corrections made to the amount that was coming out of people's life savings. I mean, it's estates, but it's what all they have left, and we all know the high cost of elder care. The presiding judge of the Santa Clara County Superior Court called me hours after this story. I was gonna say it was published, but I'm supposed to say posted, I think, aired. And I had heard that his father was in the hospital dying. He was the presiding judge of the Superior Court. And when he called me, I was like, yo, judge, we can talk about this later. You know, it's like, I'll call the assistant presiding judge. We go be with your dad. And he said, no, Karen, he said, I can't do anything about my father, but I can do something about this. And he did. Within days and weeks, they were overhauling their rules. As our craft has become more endangered, it has oddly become more appreciated. These stories elicit so much love for journalism and for newspapers, and I mean, I just can't tell you the flood of emails we get. It's almost as if people had an old friend that they took for granted, took advantage of, and didn't appreciate until now when they get something in the paper that's good, it's what they know they want, they know they need, they love it, they love it. And it's an honor to be able to do that. It's gotten so bad that even people we're going after appreciate us these days. I've spent the last better part of the year writing about a corrupt county supervisor, George Shirakawa Jr. He had a secret slush fund of campaign contributions that he used in casinos up and down the West Coast. And he was very unhappy about the work we were doing. He was very mad, and he would get up at public meetings and rant and rave. And he's a quarter Latino and half Japanese, and he went on this thing that it's because I'm mixed race, he said. It's because I'm fat. And then he said, it's because I'm a Raiders fan. Why are you going after me like this? This fellow is facing a 13 criminal count indictment. He's going to be in court next week. I think it's about a 1 to 3 year sentence. He's been charged with a whole slew of political crimes. When I bumped into him in the elevator not too long ago, he's a big bear of a fellow, and there we were, he and I thought, oh, George, now's the time to get my comment, here we are. And the doors closed, and ever since my fellowship back in our day, we could exercise, so I've kept that up, and I'm not as large as George. We were in the elevator together, and George said, "Why are you hurting me?" This was before the DA pressed charges. "Why are you hurting my family?" And then he put as the doors closed, put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "But Karen, I actually really like you. You're very fair," he said. People always say they're scared of me, and I don't know why. I'm a very, very nice person. The director of the social services agency in our county is now at the state level, and he used to say, "Karen, please, just call me directly." He said, "When you call my staff, they have a heart attack." And so I used to often think if we could all just sit in front of a bank of telephones and just call people and just scare them, they would all do the right thing. This would save on newsprint. I could pitch this as a project. I hear the Knight Fellows can apply again under the new program. Maybe this will be mine. Without boring you, I would not be a journalist today if I didn't tell you a bit more about the real story at my paper. Because I'm having a lot of fun and I'm very optimistic and I get to do stories like this. But the reality is, as Jim said, I'm going to give you a few more insights into that. I work for the union, so our bargaining unit or other set of numbers I can give you. When I came to the paper, we had 840 members. This was 2000, and now we have 155. We also represent the janitors and the clerks and the salespeople, but we're down 80% in the last decade. And that is, from what I have heard, is the most dramatic decline of probably any newspaper in the country. We had a whole investigative team, and Pete Carey, 2 Pulitzer Prizes, and Pete, where are you? Pete. Yes, Pete. There were 3 editors at one time. Now I'm pretty much the only investigative reporter in the Mercury News newsroom, and I don't have an editor who's dedicated to projects. Less discussed at our paper, and I just feel I would be really remiss not to talk about this, is how shamefully male and white downsizing has left our paper. The newsroom scenes would rival the Mad Men office. It's really bad. It's shameful and disgraceful, and quite frankly, if anyone is looking for a failed business model, it's called don't match your demographic, don't match your market. How can white males decide, produce, create, and execute the news and try to sell it to other white men when that's not the society we live in? So I would encourage some people, some projects to just look around them and realize that not diversifying newsrooms is probably one of the major contributors to our downfall. The GOP have figured that out. Why can't we? We've had some good ideas. Just last year, my 65 newspaper chain was actively considering a universal copy desk. For those of you who are guests tonight, a copy desk are the people who save our asses from mistakes. And it's not just commas and spelling and stuff. It's really serious. The last frontier of line editing is the copy desk. The plan that was being developed was to have a universal copy desk for all 65 papers in India. So much for running over to your copy editor and looking over her shoulder. The Mercury News people in PR are everywhere. One day I did a story and I called 5 of them. They are at state senators' offices, state assembly officers, they're at the governor's office, they're at Stanford, they're at Santa Clara University, they're at the Secretary of State's office, they're at the Silicon Valley Consumers Governor's what do they call it? Manufacturers Association. It's pretty amazing, and it's hard not to say, am I the fool? My colleagues have left in droves for PR, and why aren't I looking for a real job? Those of you who know me know that I would give away all the company secrets to the first reporter that called. So, sadly for me, that is not an option. I'm also not an entrepreneur. I'm not an MBA. I would not have the faintest idea how to pitch a social media app to a venture capitalist. I still call them vulture capitalists. In all honesty, I'm still trying to read my own handwriting, people. It's sad. I scribble things and people always say, can you read that? And I often say, well, sometimes. So this is the honesty part, and I'll probably be flogged mercilessly with your iPhone cords, or dragged out of here by my hair, but I often feel very alienated in my newsroom. Everyone is blogging and tweeting and touting and posting, and I'm taking months and months just to find the best possible story. The most amazing story, the story that no one else has heard before. If I get a great idea and if I find it somewhere on the internet, I'm like, not doing that. It's such a precious gift to be the person doing these projects, about one a year, that I want it to be the most incredible, mind-boggling thing that's gonna rock the world. And so that makes it really hard to come up with stories, and it's actually a not too discussed secret among investigative journalists, but they don't just drop from the journalism heavens into your lap all the time. So it takes a long time just to find a good story. I spend months wooing sources, convincing them to talk to me. I go down a lot of blind alleys. I take weeks going down somewhere that doesn't pan out. And here's where my family knows what I'm talking about. I agonize over whether it's really a good story. One day, I'm like, oh my God, you guys, I have the best story ever. This is like gonna be the best story I've ever done. It's just incredible. And then the next day, I'm like, this is the worst story. What was I thinking? This is terrible. This is gonna be the first really bad story I've ever done, right? And then the next day, I'm like, yo, I think I'm onto something here. It's a real roller coaster. They know, right? They're laughing. Putting the stories together, there are so many drafts and so many versions. This was a 2-part series. It would be embarrassing to count how many versions of this. I mean, really, people. We're talking just, it's embarrassing. There's so many, we rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and we cut and we add, and the leads of the stories are changed so many, many, many times. It's an absolute obsession. There's sleepless nights. Is it true? Is it fair? Is it accurate? And who am I going to hurt with this story? Who am I going to help? Can I back this up? Will I have to run a correction? It's terrifying. The stakes are so high. The glorious team comes together. There's copy editors and line editors and photojournalists and photo editors and graphic artists, and all these people join you in the obsession in the final days when you're putting the story together. Literally every word, every number, every letter. Just getting it perfect. We do a tremendous amount of soul searching in this business, in large part because we know how powerful our words are. We know we have to get it right. And KTVU found that out this week. Back to the difficult task that Jim and Don have given me tonight. I struggled with this talk because I really do want to be hopeful, but it's very hard for me as a journalist to ignore the reality of my newspaper. So there were days I was like, why the hell did Jim ask me to do this? What can I say that's inspirational? How can I tell you that my story is an inspiration, that our stories are inspirations at newspapers when we are fighting really hard? So I came to my good friends, Krista Boites and Gary Wolf, who are also in my class, also here with this problem. And they said it can simply be a mystery. Gary said there's a kind of mystery here about why this works and is being supported in a world of tweeting and blogging. And it's a mystery that I live in every day. It's one of those things, Gary said, that's very hard to put on some editor's report about web traffic. And that is what I present you with today. The mystery of how so many amazing revelations continue to be unearthed by print journalists in the US media today. I spoke with Alex Jones, who runs the Goldsmith Investigative Prizes every year on that other coast. He has record entries for the award. And having judged them, I know how much is being done across the country at papers large and small. And I know that in every single case, there's tremendous impact. You don't always hear about it because it's not always just in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Trish Callahan at the Chicago Tribune told us about flame retardants in our couches and how deceptive corporations had kept, industry campaigns had kept this from people. Laura Sullivan at NPR, Native American children still being wrenched from their mother's hands and arms because they're poor. People rotting in jail just because they can't afford bail. The AP story on moss crawlers, remember that? Had to go up against Mayor Bloomberg, who denied such an NYPD unit even existed. Now it's all come out. When a project sees the light and makes a difference, it works magically often. We don't set out to do this, but clearly the data are in. Often more effective than any protest or piece of legislation or policy. And this all came home to me recently. I got a phone call. And it was from an attorney for a manager at a waste management company, a trash company. And he said that his client had found a head without a body. And he said he knew where the other body parts were. But he said he had talked to his bosses and he had talked to law enforcement, and no one would listen to him. No one wanted to hear his story. So he said, "Karen, that's why we called you. We called you because no one would listen." And it struck me again how desperately we are needed. People call the paper when no one will listen. They call when the police won't listen, when the cops won't listen, when the courts won't listen. They call when the politicians won't listen. They call when they're being sexually assaulted in the military. They call when innocent people are being sent to death row. They call when priests are raping children. And they call when the government is spying on its people. You, my friends, are there to take the call, and I am honored to be among you. Thank you.
There's only one thing I can say, which is wow. Thank you, Karen, for reminding us, for re-centering us on what is so important about you do what we all do. It's a great lesson, the mystery and the magic, and the fact that people do call us because we can make a difference. Thank you.